I think few of us know much about the history of water, and so we're kind of reaching for questions. I hope I'm not outside your field. Not long ago, we signed the Great Lakes Compact, which is an agreement among states and some of the provinces of Canada about water use. Is there much history of agreements such as that about who has rights to water?
That I can't actually comment on. I would look for a lawyer in the audience who could do something on water rights rather than myself. I think the only comment I would have, and this is an oblique answer to your question, is that for better or for worse, I read the talkback sections on Cleveland.com, which can be a frightening experience. And the water issue came up last weekend, and several people said, well, you know, compacts like this are made to be broken in emergencies. You know, I've been associated with historic preservation, and I've watched things that have been on historic registers go goodbye if there was enough pressure. I think this compact is important, but I think there will be a struggle as issues go on, particularly if population increases in the Southwest, you know, where the water is going to come from, increased population growth throughout the United States.
I can actually add a little bit to that because I was researching because I was afraid they'd overwhelm me with their vast knowledge here.
And we obviously didn't.
Yeah, you didn't, apparently not. But this month, 1 year ago, the state legislature in Georgia tried to move their border north to include the Tennessee River because they said that way back in the Civil War it was drawn wrong. So we actually own the river. We want that water, and Tennessee, of course, is fighting them. It could go to the Supreme Court, and that could be something that we all wind up watching closely because we could have that fight one day.
I'd like to add, I read that in the year 2025, if the population of the world goes up by 1/3, we're going to need a 40 times the amount of water, 40% more water than what we have currently. And with the global warming, with less snow on the Rockies and the Sierra Nevadas, with the aquifers being depleted more than they've been replenished, I think, I compare John's comments, I think there's going to be a water grab in the future, regardless of what kind of legislation is. And it gets to be a moral question, too. What if there are people who are starving? Or, I mean, you can live for a month without food. You can only live about a week without water. And so these become moral questions, too.
Right. I might add there's an important issue going on around Poland Springs, Maine, which is Poland Springs water, which has now been glommed into by, you know, a major bottler. And the question is, when you drill on one property and you drain the aquifer, how many other properties are you impinging on? And that's a huge issue there. It's jobs and rights that are going up and down there.
We're fighting above ground and below ground.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Other question?
I have a question. Is there any government agency that's looking at these old strip malls and the big malls that have all this asphalt covering the earth? And is anybody going to pull that stuff up? Is anybody looking at that to reclaim that earth?
Well, at our Burning River Fest last year, we had it at Nautica, and we had a company come in and they put down a slab of pervious concrete about half the size of this room, and they had a sprinkler going on during the whole fest that served two purposes: one, for kids to run through to cool off, or people who had too much Dortmunder. And then secondly, it was an experiment to show people with all the liquid that's continually falling on and how it would permeate down through the pavement. And so the person who built it was generous in spirit, but also he was trying to have a visual for his product that he's trying to get out in the market. The other thing we did at the Burning River Fest was with the billions of water bottles that end up in landfills, we sold bottles that had that you could fill with tap water from Cleveland. And we said, there's nothing wrong with our local water. Why buy bottled water and then throw the bottle away? Here's Lake Erie water that's beautiful Northern Ohio water, and here's a bottle you could fill and then keep coming back and we'll refill it for free. And that way it drove the comment that we have great water here, and just plant that seed that we can't keep living with all this take, make, waste plastic products.
Another?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer who works in water rights and environmental law, and I would just echo what you said as accurate. No, that's right. Before I went to law school, though, I was a historian, so my question's history aimed. And it gets to one of the dynamics that you've already mentioned. there's something of a controversy or a question for us with the Ohio and Erie Canal and its effect on water quality. It's itself a National Historic Landmark today, but there are questions about whether we should keep that canal watered. I wonder if you have any comments on that and how that reflects the overall dynamics of change that we're talking about.
I don't know if I could comment directly on it. I know that only part of it is watered, and that's the section I'm most familiar with is up in toward northern Ohio, which is the old that was actually preserved as cooling water for the Cuyahoga Works of American Steel and Wire. And as I see, and it tends to stagnate. It doesn't tend to flow, and there are breaks between the canal and into the river frequently during storms, so that is problematic. I guess it's all a question of money, because as a historian, I'd love to see that canal clean and restored and accessible for canal boat trips, so people could begin to understand how that functioned, that major artery. But it is a conundrum, that was watered until 1913, until a huge storm, and then it was abandoned because it had become obsolete. But that section in the north, and then around Roscoe Village, there's a workable section as well.
I'd like to add that being a hopeless romantic, that I always dreamed that wouldn't it be great to have a couple miles of it resurrected so you could experience the locks and then stay at inns along the way. I mean, if you go to Europe through France and England, there's all kinds of boat travel on canal boats, and I thought it would be a charming way to spend the time out in the countryside and then also learn about a very important part of the development of Ohio. Unfortunately, as the last shovel went in to finish the canal, that distant whistle was a train, which rendered it obsolete almost overnight, right, John?
Right. One last question.
Yes, we've all gone through an odd winter, and we wonder, what does climate change mean along the Great Lakes, Lake Erie in particular? What has it meant? What will it be? And my second question is, what about wind turbines?
Well, part of the experience again at the Burning River Fest this summer is going to be people there talking about wind turbines as far as power generation, but also wind turbines as a part of another developing business that could flourish the great manufacturing base here in Northeast Ohio. As an extension of that, I'm so glad that we built our brewery in Cleveland, because it's pumps, it's valves, it's heat exchangers, it's chillers, and it's centrifuges, and everything we need either is at our fingertips, or there's somebody in town that is a fabricator that could quickly remedy a problem we have. And so if we had been out in some western city in a very rural environment, maybe pretty and maybe a ski resort not so close by, that probably would have been aesthetically more pleasing, but we'd probably be out of business right now. So I think that the fact that we have turbine possibilities here in Northeast Ohio, I think is huge, provided then if they have more elegant designs, and that is that it doesn't end up, when the parts deteriorate, they end up in the landfill, parroting again what Bill McDonough said. As far as global warming, they say that the winters are going to get more severe and the summers are going to get drier, and if that in fact is the case, then that sounds like evaporation to me, which means the water table will drop. And Lake Erie is already the shallowest of the Great Lakes by a ton. Darcy Egan of the Plain Dealer actually refers to Lake Erie as the biggest fishing hole in the world. And that's true, because there's 40 times more fish in Lake Erie than Lake Superior, which is probably 100 times bigger.
I think we are completed here. Thank you so much, Pat Conway, John Grabowski.
Today at the City Club, we've been listening to a special program featuring Pat Conway, co-owner of the Great Lakes Brewing Company, and John Grabowski, Krieger-Mueller historian at Western Reserve Historical Society and associate professor in applied history at Case Western Reserve University. The program was moderated by IdeaStream's Rick Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Conway, Mr. Grabowski, Mr. Jackson, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This program is now adjourned.